welcome back to the Matchup Report. Here again to talk some NFL preseason training camp, just NFL preview action in general. I'm very excited to keep doing this. We did our first show last week talking about the Northern divisions, and then now this week we'll be talking about the Eastern divisions. But before we get into it, Jay, how you been, man?
I am good. I am in desperate need of a haircut, but I'll make that happen sometime this upcoming week. But hopefully, as we do next show and we talk South, I'll be a lot sharper,
Mm.
just physically. But otherwise, I'm excited to talk the East. There's a lot of great things to do here. So like we did last week, we did 8 teams, which obviously when you cover the East, AFC and NFC, 4 teams each division. And to set ourselves not having the show go 2 hours, we are going to once again stick with the 8 minutes per team, which I think worked out really well. You said it worked out really well,
Mm.
and seems like it's the best thing to take advantage of everyone's time, and briefly summarize all the craziness that's happened since these teams last played. Obviously, Bills. We look at them; they're our first team, like AFC East, like conference championship. But other of these teams, the Jets, not even thinking about that sort of thing. So a lot to break down for them and all of these teams. So I'm ready when you are.
I'm definitely ready. Let's get to it, man.
All right, that first team that I mentioned, set a timer, is the Bills. They finished 12-5 last year, and lost their head coach in the process of Sean McDermott, who has been there one of the longest tenured head coaches at that time. I believe we had a lot of uh, chaos between John Harbaugh switching teams, Sean McDermott as well. I think that makes like Nick Sirianni one of the longest tenured ones, which is kind of crazy because it doesn't really feel like he's even been here as an Eagles fan that long. But Joe
Yeah.
Brady is the new head coach of the Bills. And then Jim Lionheart is the new defensive coordinator, who was the former Broncos defensive pass game coordinator. And then looking at some of their, I would say big additions, because this was a team that like really, yes, they're trying to maximize the window of Josh Allen and getting him the Super Bowl and everything that they can. With that being said, there's only so much they can do. And I will say they did like take some swings. They're like trading for DJ Moore to get Josh Allen a reliable like receiving weapon. I think is a big step in the right direction. I really like adding Skylar Bell as well from UConn. I think he can bring a lot of like creativity options, and I think overall just like the revamp of the receiving core would definitely help out Josh Allen a lot. And then I kind of look over at the defense and I'm like, all right, we knew last year it was like this defense is old, but they're finding ways to still make the right plays. But it felt like it was either they really struggled on the run or really struggled stopping the run or just like got diced up in the pass game. It was either one or the other. And I kind of look at this and say like, I don't think any of the additions that they made on the defensive end like really help them in a sense of coming in and improving drastically from last season. It's like, yeah, you added Bradley Chubb, but like he's kind of up there. And yes, I still think he'll give you some juice in that pass rush, but I don't think it's enough where you can look at this and say like he's going to come in and make a difference for you to like make those big plays when necessary in games. And then some of the rookies as well. Like I'm one of the few people that actually likes Davison Igbinosun out of Ohio State.
Mm.
I know a player like that it very much is like make or break because the penalties as a DB are death. Like if you're out there and you're holding every time, it's tough. But Ohio State pedigree, I think watching this film through the draft process, I think it was a lot better than what people, especially this past season, a lot better than what
Mm.
people may have seen. So I really like the direction that they went in the draft to kind of rebuild their defense a little bit. To me, I just look at it and say, I don't think it's enough.
I think I agree, especially with like you said, like the DB room. I think that especially is where they're going to be hurt the most. Like Cole Bishop, I think definitely took a step last year, and Benford can be good for you. But outside of that, I'm like we'll see what you get out of CJ Gardner Johnson at this point, who has obviously been really good
Yeah.
in the past. Maxwell Harrison, you see if he can maybe take that next step. But I think the biggest change for the defense is straight up just the new coordinator because they're switching from a 4-3 to a 3-4. And I do think that actually is an area where it'll help out the defense in a way where, especially along the D line, I think Ed Oliver, like being the nose tackle in this scheme, will be like a huge break for him. Like, not that he's been bad at all. Like, he's mainly just been dealing with injuries. I think what he played like 2 games last year or something like that. But like having him healthy and in a lineup like this in this kind of scheme, I think we could see Ed Oliver kind of like resurge in a way where we're like, oh, we're talking about him again, like, oh yeah, he is one of these better like D tackles within the league. And then you're probably gonna be asking for more physicality from your other D linemen. Like they brought in Bradley Chubb, who was previously with the Dolphins. You still have Greg Rousseau there, who can do some nice things for you. And then I actually like Landon Jackson, who I think if you look at their depth chart, he was listed as like fourth down there. But he was a guy coming out of Arkansas a few years ago who I was a big fan of coming out of the draft. And I was like, he might not be a day one guy, but he is a guy who has all the physical tools and he has a huge motor, which is like to me when I'm
Yeah.
evaluating edge rushers, motor is such a big thing. But like think about a guy like Brandon Graham, right? Like, yeah, it's like technically he may not, but like the physical and the motor like that he has, like that's what would get him to the backfield a lot of times to make him successful, like setting the edge or rushing the passer. And I think Landon Jackson can sort of be a guy like that. They said he's added like 15 pounds of muscle this offseason to like adjust to this new role. And it sounds like during training camp, he's actually been like earning more playing time. So I'm looking forward to that part. And then on the offensive side, I'm so tired. Like Josh Allen is an amazing quarterback. He is top five. Like I'm not gonna say he's not like a top five quarterback in the league, but I'm so tired of the hand holding and like the clutching the pearls and just the like babying of Josh Allen. Where like oh he finally has help with DJ. This was a top offense in the league last year, despite what everyone says about their wide receiver room. Rightfully so. Like the receiver room wasn't great. Josh Palmer didn't pan out the way they wanted to. They've been trading for like man beaters and receivers for like feel like the past few seasons,
Yeah.
whether it be like name a guy at this point. But so they bring in Moore, who I do think can be like a good addition to this team. He can definitely be more of a man beater for them. Like a lot of teams would just play man coverage on them, say like we don't think you can beat us, and then a lot of times it ended up being Dalton Kincaid who had to be like their best man beater on offense. And like yes, that's a valuable thing to have at tight end, but you don't want that to be like your number one and kind of like only option on the offense. So DJ Moore
Yeah,
can help
I
out with that.
will. I will jump in and say, like, I think Khalil Shakir did a
Yeah,
great job, especially going over the middle for them as well. But either way, I like the versatility that DJ Moore adds to his receiving core. Is that like, and I think so many times we've seen like receiving depth like used as a negative thing to say like, oh, like there's not enough, there's only one ball to go around, and we've seen chaos with like the AJ Brown situation where he's not getting his targets. But I think all of these players, you can look at them and say none of them are ball dominant enough where it's like they will disrupt the system that the Bills are trying to run on the offensive end. Like DJ Moore, Khalil Shakir, even Keon Coleman. Like I think this could help him as well, just to give a better opportunity of not having him the force of him trying to be the number one guy. Like learn from DJ Moore, continue to grow. And I think all of that makes this a really solid receiving core. Probably, yes, still it's the best Josh Allen has had. With that being said, all of the excuses around him and all of the like I just I'm with you on this where I don't want to hear any more excuses after this season. Where it's like
well,
because I don't like this team is good. I like the offense is great, and I think we will see it to the level that like that they are. But I can hear the excuses now. Like, well, the defense wasn't good enough. Josh Allen did everything he could, and to some degree, it's like I could understand that, right? Like defense is a
he
big
threw
part
the
of it.
ball backwards at the end of the half, and he turned over 4 or 5 times in a playoff game. Your offense can be as great as you want it to be. Your defense can be average and good enough in a playoff game. If you're turning the ball over like Josh Allen did, and it was it's this started with the end of that playoff game. It was during it with all the turnovers happening and people being like, oh well, like this is actually the old lineman's fault for not jumping on it, which we've talked about before. Where it's like, what
Yeah,
is this bullshit like excuses we're making for Josh Allen when it's compared to other quarterbacks like maybe a Lamar Jackson, right? Where it's like, why are we not making the same excuses for these guys when it's like there shouldn't even be an excuse there anyways? But what pissed me off too is that like it feels like everyone just forgets that James Cook was like one of the best running backs in the league last year and led the league in
yes,
rushing behind an O line that like, gave him a good push and was like doing well in that sense. Whereas like, oh, Josh Allen finally got some help. They had the number one fucking rusher last year. Like, what are we talking about? He finally got some help. You know what helps a quarterback? Not turning the ball over in the playoffs. So I just and then it was like, oh, everybody's crying after the playoff game. The owners talk about how like it was like a war zone in the
yeah,
locker room out there. Everyone's like just devastated. I'm like, come on, dude. Like, can we relax here? Like, they like protect Josh Allen from what? The only thing you need to protect Josh Allen from is himself and a defense that can maybe stop the run would be fantastic. Which I do also think that this new coordinator and this scheme can help with. So I just think like I don't have any problems with thinking that this offense can't be top five in the league, and I think the defense, as long as it can just be better against the run and just hold up there under the bargain, this is a team that we should be talking about going to potentially the AFC Championship game. It's just I haven't seen this team and Josh Allen do that yet. I have seen other teams do it, like the Ravens or whoever else, right? But I haven't seen this team do it. But maybe McDermott out, Joe Brady in, who has been a good offensive coordinator for them since he took over in the interim role like a few years ago. He's done a really good job. It's just it's almost like the Chargers conversation where it's like, well, it's a little bit different, but like it's like, all right, cool. I know you'll be good in these areas. Can I just see you be consistent with it in the playoffs?
Okay. That our time's up, so I won't elaborate on that. But I will just say that I think James Cook plays a much bigger role in the Bills' success than people are willing to give credit for. And that also at the same time is a credit to the offensive line as well. But I just think that this team isn't like different enough that like they'll improve to like being a Super Bowl contender. Like, and I don't think Josh Allen helps that, especially when we've seen him perform at the level that he has in the playoffs. Um, all right, we're gonna swap teams now over to the Miami Dolphins. Um, and I will say, and this maybe is just like me being like, all right, everyone knows like the Dolphins going into last season just felt like just chaos. All right, like you had McDaniel's there, but it was like, all right, like Tua's still your quarterback. You paid him all this money. Like it was a whole situation where it's like Tyreek Hill was still healthy at the start of the season, Jalen Waddle. And now you look at this roster and it is completely different. And I'm very excited for that. And I think like it is so easy for teams to do like half rebuilds and not fully commit to being a rebuilding team because they're scared of like, trading away and losing their fan base or like or whatever have you. And I think it's very rare that we see a team go fully into just being like, all right, we're blowing everything up and using the picks to actually move into a positive direction. And I think Miami did a great job doing that in this offseason. And yes, right, like I know people may have their doubts about Malik Willis. I'm really excited to see him get a second chance in a new system because I think when we saw him, stepping for Jordan Love with the Packers, he did a great job. So I'm excited to see what that looks like. And the Dolphins had one of my favorite drafts. Jacob Rodriguez, I think, is going to be a stud for them as a great like leading linebacker. Like he can come in and make an immediate impact. It's like that captain of the defense. And I also really like Kyle Lewis as well. Is like kind of the exact opposite of like not that like personality wise. I mean like from coverage skills wise, like Jacob Rodriguez, you might kind of question the coverage skills as a linebacker, but like I've never seen a like or at least in all my years watching it, which is like a singular year. I've never seen anyone as like kind of like a strong like linebacker that is elite and like coverage skills the way that Kyle Lewis is out of Pitt. So I'm really excited to see what that duo looks like as a linebacker, combination. And then Caden Proctor is, I think, a really
Mm-hmm.
solid addition to the lineman room, and even Chris Johnson as a DB as well. So I and Chris Bell, I think as well. Like he was a weird prospect to review because he was coming off of an injury, but like he was getting
Right.
all this AJ Brown style comp of like, oh,
Yeah.
he's super physical, like he can go up and get balls for you. Yeah, that's AJ Brown. And I can see that, but I think it's tough to really evaluate that until you really see it in action. But I definitely I don't want to like I'm not going to sit there and hype him up to the levels of AJ Brown because I think AJ Brown is one of a kind. But I will say like I think if there's like there's like AJ Brown, there's DK Metcalf, and then I think there's Chris Bell, and there's like the evolution of some sort that he can reach, and I question what that looks like. But I think like the Dolphins have set themselves up with a solid foundation where it's like I think they could just be a really fun team where they still have Devon A. Chain. I think Malik Willis like give him the keys for a year and just it's clearly a transition year. You're trying to establish like what's throwing things at the wall, see what sticks, and I think like this is a fun enough team where I think we'll like I said, I think fun is the word here more than anything.
Yeah, it's funny that we both kind of like are on the same mindset here because my first note with the Dolphins was like Jeff Hafley's in, and I don't know, full rebuild. Let's just lock in. Like this is gonna be one of those teams where like they'll be one of the last teams I watch film on throughout the week because it'll just be like, all right, let's see what they had going on. Because it's like you're right, they are full sale rebuild here. I mean, they have
Yeah,
it's like around $179 million in dead cap space, like just dead money out there from players they traded away. Like Tua was like 50 something million of that. Like it is with the Falcons now. You trade away Jalen Waddle to the Broncos, right? And so it's like you have that. I think it was like they have
release
as much.
Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, it's like they have as much in dead money right now as the Bengals spent on their entire offense. So it's like it's insane. But like they this is what they had to do, and they fully admitted it. Like they've been very upfront about all of it. Like, look, we're gonna have to take a hit this year. They have 40 players on 1 year contracts right now. You only get 53 guys on your roster, so that's a crazy amount. But like they've said fully upfront, like this is a year where we're gonna find our culture, guys. We're gonna set that culture, and then we'll continue from there, right? It's not like they're saying like, oh, we're going to the Super Bowl. Like they're like, no, this is rebuild. We're setting our culture, and this is how it usually is supposed to go. You always hope that ownership has the patience to
Yeah.
follow through with it. Just be like, year one is like you're crawling, year two you can start walking, and then year three it's like okay, maybe now we can start running and starting to compete again. So
Yeah.
this first year is very important for them in those ways. And what I do like obviously Jeff Hadley is bringing over his defense and what we saw a lot with the Packers, and I think he can have some success with that. And then on the offensive side, they kept Bobby Slowick, who was with them, I think the previous 2 years or at least last year as well. And what I like about them keeping him is like this Dolphins run game ended up being like top three in the league by the end of the year. Like it was really, really damn good. So I like that they kept Bobby Slowick over there, who like obviously McDaniels was the one like calling the plays and all that, but you keep a guy there who can continue some of those run concepts and like the creative stuff they were doing over there. And I think you have Malik Willis, an O line that actually is like improving. Like I don't hate like this O line finally for the Dolphins actually seems like it could be like at least a little above average. And then you have A Chain like you said and Malik Willis. Like that could be a really dangerous running game. And then on top of that, like well not on top of that, but then on the flip side of that, you're like okay, your receiving room you got Malik Washington, and then after that, I'm just like I don't know. It's just a bunch of unknowns, and it's like who even makes this roster at this point?
Yeah.
Tight end, I think they're starting tight end right now is Greg Dulcich, which okay. And then yeah, on the defensive side, that's where I'm most interested with this team. Well, the run game, and then on the defensive side, it's like what I love about teams like this a lot of times, and like we talk about this sometimes with like the Raiders and the Panthers at times with like certain coordinators, where it's like you don't have a lot on that side of the ball for yourself, right? Like you're not going to have a lot of top end talent there. So let me just see how creative and fun you can get. Like kind of like the Cardinals when with Gannon, like the previous years, where it's like they were just trying like some funky stuff. Where it was like, why are there two D linemen out there? And then like there's just a bunch of DBs, and you're just like, okay, use Buda Baker, who cares? And it's just like I just want to see like what fun they have with this team and like what they try to establish like early on. But
I think
like
that to me is I think like what makes this team fun. And
yeah,
I think it ends up being more in a direction of like I think it'll pan out to some degree. And I say that solely because it feels like not just it feels like they really have nothing to lose with this as much like contracts. Like everything that you just mentioned about like the 1 year contracts, like this being like just a straight rebuilding year, it really is a like let's set the culture, let's see like what like who's staying with us moving forward, who's not staying with us moving forward, and then you can go into next year's draft and be like, all right, we know like Malik Willis wasn't our guy, or Malik Willis is our guy moving forward for the future, like one way or another, like it literally they made all the best moves possible to set themselves up for a proper rebuilding year and potentially a proper rebuild. And I think like you said, long term the question is going to be like what degree of like patience does an organization have with just being bad? And I think that's kind of the issue because you can see teams blow it up and then they never get into the proper mindset of rebuilding because they're trying to like buy players to like just speed the process up and it doesn't work that way. So
yeah.
I hope that of all this, like the Dolphins have the patience to just stick this through.
I will say that real quick before I move on. I am huge. Call me like I'm in the Malik Willis fan club, okay, and I have been. I don't since the draft, okay, since he came out in that same draft as Kenny Pickett. I was on the Malik Willis train since then because I went to the Senior Bowl when all those quarterbacks were trying out and everyone was trying to look at them and like evaluate them. And I'll never forget all the quarterbacks in the Senior Bowl. Like none of them were like exactly standing out. Like that was a weak quarterback draft class, which is why all of them were at the Senior Bowl. And then you got Kenny Pickett working out, and I always forget. It was like a rainy day at the Senior Bowl that year. Some dude came up to me and was like, I don't even know the guy. He was just like another like random like I don't know what he does. He's like, oh well, the quarterback battle here is over, right? Because that's all everyone was talking about. Like it was like Matt Corral and Kenny Pickett and Malik. He's like, clearly Kenny Pickett's the best guy here, right? We all figured that after 2 days. I was like, did we? I was like, I don't know if I've seen that at all. I was like, to me, like none of them are showing anything special besides Malik Willis, who like it's his athleticism, and you're just kind of banking on that like he develops over time. But I think that's kind of what we've seen over time, where it's like the Titans were the Titans. But then he goes to the Packers, he gets into a good ecosystem that can work with him, that uses him properly, he looks good, which is why he ends up with the Dolphins. Now, unfortunately, he is with the Dolphins in a rebuild kind of thing, and I'm hoping that he's not just like the sacrificial lamb until they find a guy for the future once his team actually gets set. So I'm really, really rooting for him, and like it's good for my own personal agenda if Malik Willis is successful. But I also just think he's a very fun and dynamic player, and it would just be a lot. It would be a really fun league and offense if he has the success that I think he could have.
Next up, we have the New England Patriots. And honestly, I'm not very confident in them. I still think this is going to be a very solid team, but for factors that we're going to talk about in the next 8 minutes, I just don't have as much confidence as I do in them last season. And I think generally most NFL fans are kind of in the same direction, but there's
Can I
Patriots
ask
fans who are
how
really
much confidence did you have in the Patriots? I know they made it to the Super Bowl, but like how much confidence did you actually have in them going through the entire season in general, especially the playoffs?
I would say the playoffs, I was a full on like, I don't think they'll do good. And to some degree, like it's you the schedule thing was the biggest talk. And I think that like naturally so scared me more than anything. And I constantly have seen it from, and I know this is completely different like level, but you see all these dominant college players that are dominating at like, random schools, and it doesn't translate to the NFL level. Um, and or even like that was a big talk with like Ashton Genty, and it was like, oh, like, well, he's doing it's like Bowling Green, and it's like you put him in the NFL, it doesn't matter. And to some degree, it's like you just play who's in front of you. With that being said, like the Patriots like did have a much easier schedule. With that being said, they still were able to beat teams like the Bills, who at times though they were just like struggling, but the Patriots are able to take advantage of it. So it really is an interesting mix of like I genuinely was kind of like about their schedule and like how they were competing leading up to it. With that being said, they still overperformed and took advantage, and especially when they got to the playoffs, they pushed through it and they were able to maximize that I think maximize and open a window for a potential Super Bowl. But now we're looking at a team that traded for AJ Brown and what was the world's best kept secret. Added Romeo Dobbs, which I think could be a really good addition to the receiving core. Elijah Vera Tucker, and then Caleb Lomu, they added in the draft, which I think the funniest thing about all of this was just like seeing his like the little video that they do whenever they get drafted. It's like just them like behind a green screen and he's like waving his arms and like everything. This is who's protecting like Drake May for the future. Like you got Will Campbell and Caleb Lomu. But I do like that they were able to essentially kind of draft him. They can stash him a little bit in a sense where you have Morgan Moses on the right side. He's 35 years old. If you're like, all right, like if you needed a very, average to higher upside person to come in and replace him for, moments if he gets hurt, or just even a long term situation, like it is a positive step. But I think looking on this team on paper, you don't see a lot of weaknesses. I know like Will Campbell, I think is a big question mark for some people. I know we're both kind of like more positive on him.
Uh,
And I think that faith kind of wavered a little bit throughout the season. Um, I still think that like you're it was his rookie year. There was a lot happening. I still think that you can give him time to develop a bit more and just be patient with him. Um, but like on the defensive end, I think the biggest issue I saw was like I was looking at this linebacker core and I was like, I don't know if I'm that confident. And I think they have a decent D line, but I think D line is one of those positions that you just have to have waves and waves of guys, and especially depth. And I think when you look at the competition that they're going to be playing this year, that is, I think, the biggest questions I have because I think Drake May will take another step for you. AJ Brown can come in and instantly like improve your receiving core. If you had any doubts about that, like this is a team that I think got better offensively, but I just look at the defense and I'm like I'm not entirely sure that I can say the same.
yeah, so, I mean, starting with the offense, I do think like they kind of so you add AJ Brown and Romeo Dobbs, which I think is fantastic. I think they're perfect fits for what the style that the Patriots want to play. Like they're gonna hit some deep bombs. Like Drake May, we know, like he it was like a lot of like little dump offs, like a little here and there. Then it was just like bombs away, and which they were pretty successful with. And then you add a guy, but they were doing it to guys like Kayshon Boutte. So now you add a guy like AJ Brown and Romeo Dobbs in there, and it's like okay, you have a clear 1 and 2 there, while you still have all the depth behind them with guys like Boutte and Pop Douglas and guys like that. So I do think
And Mac Hollins
yeah.
still.
So it's kind of like okay, you're worried about the offense taking a step back last year because of the schedule and whoever they face, but when you add AJ Brown and Romeo Dobbs, you're like, okay, that can probably make up for whatever they may have lost if they just stayed the same. The O line, I am definitely worried about. Like, I'm sorry, they did a bad job. They were bad. They just couldn't really protect Drake May that well, and like they did okay in the run game. And Trayvon Henderson could be a home run hitter for you. Stevenson, when he's not fumbling the ball, could be pretty productive for you as well. But I mean, the receivers will help out a lot. I'm just worried about them protecting Drake May, especially. I'm sorry, like I'm just not the. I said coming out of the draft, Will Campbell is probably a guard, and I still think he's probably going to be kicked into a guard spot here eventually too. I didn't mind trying him out in the rookie season, and he went through hell at times. I mean, just look at the game against the Browns, but I just I don't see it. The arm length thing is real. It's a low percent of people with who has his measurables that make it in that spot, and I just think it'd be better for the Patriots to. I don't like they don't have a replacement for him right now, but it is concerning that you have him on the left side and like you said, Morgan Moses on the right side, who like can be a steady tackle for you. But you're right, he's getting older and he's been dealt with
Yeah.
injuries in the past. So yeah, I am very worried about the O line. That's really kind of the only thing I'm really worried about with their offense going forward. And then on the defensive side of the ball, like Williams and Barmore, right? Two good, really good D linemen for you. You lost Chase on and guys like that, but you bring in Draymond Jones. Yeah, Draymond Jones. I'm a like he'll be a really good physical presence for them. Like he'll kind of take Caleb on Chase on spot, and I think he'll add more physicality, especially in the run game for them. And Chase on had like a resurgent year for them now, and like he actually performed pretty
Yes.
well for them getting to the backfield. So like that will be fine. My problem with their run game was they couldn't always get the pressure that you needed or just the front seven in general. So especially in the playoffs, they were blitzing the hell out of everybody. They had to. They
Yeah.
simply had to. I mean, I think it was near 50% of their snaps on defense in the playoffs they were blitzing, which is an insane amount. And we talked about it a lot through the playoffs. Like, and look, they it worked. They got away with it. But can that be how your defense lives? Week in and week out throughout the regular season as well, where you're just blitzing constantly. I think teams are going to see that on tape and they're going to adjust to it. So hopefully, the Patriots now with like another year in, they can adjust and figure that out. But I do like some of the DBs they got there. I'm a big Marcus Jones, Craig Woodson, Gonzo. Like those three DBs are freaking awesome. But I'm a little worried about Carlton Davis up there in age and injury history there as well. He's not as physical as he used to be. And then Kevin Byard is such a like an interesting where it's like it was almost like he was about to be out of the league, and then he goes to the Bears, and then he gets all these interceptions, and he's playing in a defensive ecosystem where you're told to hunt interceptions, and so like he was given that well, and he did a very good job about it. My problem is like his physicality isn't all there either. Like he's getting up there in age. Like he's not the same guy he was when he was with like the Titans. So now you're kind of worried about like two older injury prone guys who it's like Kevin Byard had like one good resurgent year. Can he do it again? Like is that just who he is now? Or and then Carlton Davis is even gonna stay on the field. Who do you have behind them? So I'm a little bit worried about them in that aspect. But I don't know, man. Like I agree with you. Like I don't know if I'm picking this team like, oh yeah, like they're just going to get back to the Super Bowl because they added AJ Brown. But I do think that addition will make up for a lot of it as long as AJ Brown can stay healthy. And he's already posting about just he posts. He's such the prototypical diva wide receiver where it's like it's always like the famous tweet of like, oh, receivers tweet like speak softly and whatever, like move it, like there's always some like weird poetry and like sayings that they put out on social media, and it's like he continues to do it. And Drake May is already talking about like, oh, we're about winning here. Like I don't, nobody's going to complain about getting catch.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be complaining about getting catches if we're winning. It's like, did you know? Have you done any research on your new number one receiver? Because that's literally what he was doing for the past 2 years. He was complaining about not getting catches in a team that was winning football games. So we'll see how that part works out. I'm more confident that that'll be perfectly fine. But yeah, I'm a little less confident in the Patriots. But like I do think there'll be a force within the AFC, and that this offense could be crazy explosive.
Yeah, I don't see this team going 14-3 again. I just think like they any issues that you may have about the schedule, I think they cancel out with the additions that they made to like re-up this team. But it doesn't mean at the same time that they won't still face challenges. And I think
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing that I look at with this and say like, yes, this team is going to be better than last year. Yes, they're going to have a more competitive schedule. And yes, they're also going to struggle a little bit in the process of that, but they'll still be good,
yeah.
which is it's a lot to kind of interpret there, but yes.
And I think part of it too, and maybe this is for you as well, but like I just have such a bad taste in my mouth with this offense after the playoffs. Like they really fell off.
Yeah.
And then it
Yeah.
was like you get to and I'm not making excuses, right? Like you get to the AFC Championship game, you're going into a Broncos team without their starting quarterback in a snow game, and so it's just like I don't know. Like the way Drake May performed in the playoffs last year and in the Super Bowl, just it's concerning. It's very concerning, right? Like yeah, cool. You had a great regular season on what a lot of people consider to be a very poor and easy schedule, and then you get to the playoffs and you're playing some really really damn good defenses, but you looked like a tomato can during those games. So we'll see what happens. Maybe it was just like a blip. It was a good experience for Drake May, I'm guessing, and then he can learn from that and improve on this season.
Yeah. He literally was an MVP candidate last year. Like it's a tough situation, but I think they'll be good, just not as good as last year.
Hmm.
All right, final team in the AFC East. The New York Jets finished 3-14 last season. And what was their first move? They add Geno Smith to bring them to the Super Bowl.
My
Your guy,
guy.
Geno Smith, hey, they're
Uh,
very firmly, on the idea that he can take this team to the Super Bowl. And they had a
I don't
really
know
good
about
draft.
that.
They
I don't
had a
think they
really
want to
good
make the Super Bowl.
if that New York with like the Knicks and like Mom Donnie as their mayor and like just like if the Jets were to be even somewhat competent and make the playoffs, New York would be the most peaceful we've ever seen it. Um, anyway, Geno Smith, and they had a really good draft. David Bailey was their big selection, and I'll say like I'm a little I'm not mixed because I'm mixed on the pick selection, but I'm not mixed on the talent that he's bringing to this team. Like he's a clear like just straight like line me up and I'll rush the pass. Like I will pass rush. He's still working on the run defense, but as someone who can like just pure athletic, like I'm going to get to the quarterback, he's great at that. I just think some of the other guys that were available at that position, like that's where it's like, I would have preferred to get someone that you could anchor the defense a lot more and impact the game in various ways, which I like. At the end of the day, still think David Bailey will be good. It is solely just like we're gonna have you rush the passer. Like that's your job.
And that's kind of
Um,
like
yeah,
what Will McDonald is on the other side too. He got a little bit better on
yes.
run defense last year, but like you basically have two guys who are just like, yo, just go, like get to the backfield.
Get to the quarterback. Yeah. Omar Cooper Jr. I think is another really great addition as someone who can do a lot of different things, especially across the middle and in the slot. Kenyon Sadiq is a freak athlete and someone who can like just be like damn near another receiver out there for
I'm
them.
just gonna sit here and listen to you go over the roster of the Jets right now, and I'm just gonna keep nodding my head and smiling because I was doing the same thing a couple of days ago when I was getting my notes ready. I was going over this roster in the depth chart. I'm like, hold on now, like there's some good players on this team.
With that, I will say the only issue I have with like choosing Sadiq in the draft is that you literally just drafted Mason Taylor a year before,
They're kind of
which
different
I was
guys though.
yes, but that's where I was like different skill sets makes me feel a little bit better that Taylor's a better blocking tight end that you can use in those like heavier sets. And Sadiq you can line him up anywhere, which I think makes up for the fact that like yes you're drafting two tight ends back to back. And then they traded for T'Vondre Sweat as well, like to plug up the middle.
I dude,
And
I have his name
and
in all
then
caps on my notes.
and the last edition I was D'Angelo Pons in the draft as well, another Indiana guy who like yes is very smaller, but I think he can come in and solve a lot of the issues as like a nickel back. So I look at this team okay, and this is a different like my initial thought was to compare them to the Browns, and we talked about them last week, and like how it's like yes you had a phenomenal draft, you had everything, and like but it's like you're the Browns, and like I kind of don't trust you to actually put it all together. And I think to some degree it was a little bit of that with the Jets. With that being said, they don't have to worry about Deshaun Watson. They are in a decent position, like quarterback wise. Where yes, you could say like Geno Smith offers you a floor, and he's going to play with a chip on his shoulders. We all know, and I think to me that is a obviously a lot better like contractually and everything. But it gives you time to just like solely focus on what Aaron Glenn is good at, which is a defensive first guy. And I feel the worst for him out of any of this because I think like he is a phenomenal coach, and I think especially when it comes to defense, but he didn't do himself any favors when your team doesn't get an interception through an entire 17 game season. At the same time though, like with the organization trading out all your guys and like and it's basically a fire sale. It's tough to look at this and say like it's all his fault. So I'm glad that they kept him for another year, and I'm glad that they surrounded him with some good guys on both the offensive, defensive, and for him to work with because I think like this Jets team will be better. I just think the caveat to all is that like all the other teams that we mentioned, I think will still be either the same level that they were or have gotten better. So it makes the Jets kind of just you're still the weakling of the division just because everyone else around you has gotten better. Um, but yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, so I the when I was doing research for the Jets, I literally my first note I had to put was like I need to take a walk because I'm getting like really excited about the Jets and I need to stop. They're becoming like my Raiders of last year in a way,
Oh,
but like,
it's.
but more
I'm not
confident
buying them
because
this year. You're not getting me.
all right, hey, listen, all I know is they have a good young, like ascending like O line. Okay, you have two tackles who look pretty damn good and who are still, Fushanu, remember, right? Pretty damn good. The
Yeah,
interior is good. Like this is a good O line that Geno Smith finally gets to play behind. This I don't know if this is controversial or not. This actually could be the
uh,
best O line that Geno Smith has played behind in his career. Like no joke. Like it wasn't great in Seattle. Even in the good years in Seattle, they still had their
yeah,
deficiencies, and that's why they had to keep like the Seahawks O line wasn't good until last year. And that was with a scheme change and adding a guard who could actually function. And then so now he comes into the Jets with a team where it's like you have a good O line, you have a number one receiver in Garrett Wilson, you have two good young tight ends, you have one of the best running backs in the league with Braylon Allen behind him, and this was a good running team last year. You know you're going to be past the hell of the ball because Garrett Wilson can just go up and get it. You have Adonai Mitchell, Omar Cooper Jr. out there with you. Like this is a fun team, dude. Like if Geno Smith can just stay upright and he doesn't have to, the Raiders O line and what Chip Kelly did last year should be put in textbooks for just the amount of atrocities they committed last year. Okay, Chip Kelly had people like me excited. I'm an Eagles fan. I hate Chip Kelly. I was excited for what he could potentially bring to the Raiders last year because of what we saw him do at Ohio State and all the creative and fun stuff he was doing. He phoned it the hell in last year with the Raiders. He brought none of that, and it kind of looked like, I mean, I'm pretty sure you can tell on film everybody gave up on this offense like halfway through the year. Chip Kelly was just bullshitting out there. So I don't know, man. I'm not saying we're going to see like a Geno resurgence here, but like I think he'll bring you average quarterback play at least, and which can make like with a team with an O line this good and the skill position players they have. I think this offense could actually be like surprisingly, like I'm not going to say like top 10, but like they could be hovering around there. Like if they were 12th in the offense in this league at the end of this year, I wouldn't be surprised. So you got all that on offense. My biggest problem and worry with their offense isn't even what's happening on the field; it's what's happening from the sideline or the booth, wherever he's going to be, and that's Frank Reich, because it wasn't great in college. He got fired from Stanford. He was with the Panthers previously before that, didn't go too well there. Now, in his defense, that was rookie Bryce Young and a Panthers organization that was, I mean, they're still not
yeah.
where we want them to be. And then, before that, it was with the Colts. So what I'm hoping is that we get a little bit more Colts Frank Reich, where like we saw him do some good stuff with Jonathan Taylor, and then he can bring that with like Brees Hall, because Frank Reich has been, to his credit, very creative and fun in the run game in previous years with other teams, including the Eagles back years and years ago now. So I don't know. You're just hoping that he can just bring like steady, like play calling and offensive scheme to them, and then just like I said, with the talent they have on the field, it's just that might just be all you need for the most part, especially for a team that has 3 first-round draft picks next year. They're probably just hoping for average at best, if we're being honest. And then on the defensive side, yeah, look, I mean, I like their D line. I actually do, because Will McDonald, David Bailey, and then they also brought in like it was Enigbari, who could also like
Yeah.
bring a little bit more physicality for them off the edge. I think he'll help out with like for more of like setting the edge stuff like for them when one of those guys isn't in, most likely David Bailey. But yeah, let me talk about my man Tavondre Sweat, because I talked about him a lot last year. Like I've been talking about since he came out and he was with the Titans. I was kind of hoping he would stay with the Titans because him and Simmons is such a fun, like crazy, huge combination. I know they got rid of Quentin Williams. I think Tavondre Sweat is fucking awesome. He's like Jordan Davis with like a little extra like burst. Like you know what I'm saying? Like he's that big and he can get to the backfield in like one step sometimes. And he's just so physical and fast. Like there was one play in the recent, I don't know if it was last season or the season before that, where like he got a fumble and he started running with it. I was like, holy shit, he's outrunning like skill position players right now. Like this dude is insane. So I'm a big Devondre Sweat fan. I think he'll be a great addition to this team. And we know, yeah, the
I'm cutting your
interceptions
time
thing.
off. I'm cutting your
Oh,
time off. We're talking.
dang it.
You're
Let me
about to.
just
You're
say,
about to
Nashawn
go on.
Wright is a great addition to a team that didn't have any picks last year.
Yes. You want interceptions. You go in the direction of a guy that clearly had way too many in a Bears ecosystem that basically was all gambling for it at times. But either way, I just to wrap up, I think this is a team that has improved, but then I question like the rest of the division. I think that's where I look at and say like, you go up against matchups head to head with the Bills and Patriots. Like, what does that look like? So
The biggest
I,
thing
I
that's going to hold the Jets back this season is their organization and not the players.
yes, and once again, similar vein to the Browns, but the Browns are just like they do it to a different level where it's like you can guarantee they're going to find a way to mess it up. The Jets, there's genuine hope because of how good this team is.
The Browns try to win, they just suck at it.
They try to win, but okay. Anyway, All right, final predictions for the AFC East. I'll let you go first.
Okay, I'm going Bills, Patriots, Jets, Dolphins.
Okay.
Are we
Bills,
this?
Patriots, Dolphins, Jets. I look, I think and I'm even kind of questioning it right now, like the Dolphins and the Jets. Like that's where I look at it and say, like, yeah, you almost convinced me to swap, and I was thinking about it.
After what we all just said about the Dolphins, you're going with the Dolphins over the Jets?
And
Hey,
I
you know what?
like
No, stick with it. Stick with it.
I don't feel entirely good about it, and I think that's what makes me like I like I said, I think the Dolphins are going to be a fun, like kind of frisky team.
Yeah,
I
they're gonna be a fun 4-win team.
uh but but then like I said, the head-to-head matchups for me, like with the Jets, like I want to switch now, but uh,
Nah, stay on that side. Stay on that side. Me and Gino are over here. But then I
you,
love Malik Willis too. But hey,
I'm not writing Gino off. You know what? I'll make the switch too. You've convinced me. I'll go Bills, Patriots, Jets, Dolphins. I can't in good mind like look back at the end of the season with the talent that the Jets have and like know that I was wrong about this. So
God, we
I will say that like it would just was a debate solely because I think like the Dolphins like with their explosive offense can just steal a couple games. But I'll relent and I'll put the Jets three. All right, now we go to the NFC East, which for us it means a lot. But we're gonna save getting to the Eagles for a little bit, and we're gonna talk about the Cowboys first. So the Cowboys finished 7-9-1 last year. We mentioned why that was one last week, and that was because Jerry Jones, out of spite, refused to lose to Micah Parsons. They didn't make any coaching changes, just ran it back. And the biggest addition that hurt my
well,
soul
they changed
during
their
the draft.
defensive coordinator.
Christian Parker. Yes, Christian Parker. They did bring him from the Eagles, who was like heavily applauded as one of the Eagles DB's coaches. So I'm excited to see what that looks like. I completely forgot to note him down. Um, like I was saying, the biggest thing that hurt my soul during draft night was seeing Caleb Downs fall to the Cowboys
Oh,
because I was like, they're like, to me, it was a perfect fit for what they needed. He's a monster that can come in and just solve a lot of problems for them on that defense right away. As like, and this we had like a big talking point about this during the draft show. Was like linebacker safeties like Caleb Downs are like becoming a crucial part of like NFL defenses now, where you have like a Kyle Hamilton, a Derwin James, like even further back. Like it is, and we've seen like, and it was a big talk. I was like, I think Caleb Downs goes a lot earlier because teams start to pick up that like you need a guy that can be versatile. You can move him around and do everywhere. We're already hearing talks about like him lining up in the nickel against CD Lamb and stuff and holding up well. Like out of training camp and stuff. So to me, like hearing all of that is exactly why I was frustrated seeing him go to Dallas because I was like, he can do that for you. He can do every bit of that defense for you. And then you consider that the fact that the Cowboys have one of the best defensive lines like since they stole the Packers defensive line. But they like have still rebuilt that, and Quentin Williams is going to have hopefully a full season there. So it's the defense was clearly their weakest point, and Jerry Jones came in with a mindset that he's going to improve that. And then you look on the offensive end, and it's like you still have Dak Prescott, you still have CeeDee Lamb, you franchise tag George Pickens, which might work out for you, or might not work out for you, but I
yeah.
think it's long term. That's a bigger Jerry Jones issue in contracts. That's an
Yeah.
issue, but solely for a year of like we're trying to take advantage, we're trying to win Super Bowls, like franchise tagging, George Pickens sets them in a direction where it's like you can have this explosive offense, you have a revamped defense, and it puts them in a lot better position than they were last year.
Yeah, I mean the offense. I have a feeling it's gonna be top five. Like that, I'm pretty like confident in. The only thing I'm worried about with their offense is their tackles. Like their interior, their O line is, I think, like upper echelon in the NFL. So I'm not worried about that part. But their tackles, like especially Tyler Guyton, and then like Terrence Steele, who's like, yeah, he can bring you like acceptable play at the tackle position, and you might think like he played a little bit better last year, but like I'm still not a big fan of his. And then I just don't know about Guyton, so I'm worried about their tackles. But besides that, I'm like, yeah, like I think they're gonna be perfectly fine with like even if you like CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Ferguson, Dak Prescott, like they're gonna air the hell out of the ball, and like they did a really good job running the ball last year, which Schottenheimer loves to do. Javonte Williams, Jaden Blue, like I think they can still have a lot of success there running the ball and passing it. Like their offense is gonna be perfectly fine. Like I'm not worried about that. The defense, like you said, like there's a lot of question marks there because it's just so many new names on this defense. It's actually crazy. But I'm glad you brought up Quentin Williams because I feel like when people have been talking about the Cowboys, they kind of like he almost gets like forgotten somehow, even though they traded
Yeah.
for him last year. But like that's a huge addition for them to have there if he's healthy for the full season, like you said. And then you're right, like they got Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary now on this from the Packers, and then the back end is where I'm like, this is where I think Christian Parker will make like maybe the biggest difference for the team. Like you're expecting him to bring over some like Fangio scheme type stuff where it's like it's gonna be a
Yeah.
lot of like too deep and whatnot. And I do think we're gonna see Caleb Downs basically be the Cooper DeJean of this defense. I think both the way that they're used and their skill sets, like I think they could both like very like well like mimic each other. So, and I expect Caleb Downs to hit the ground running, and I think they all do. They're already basically calling him like the captain of the defense.
Yes.
You saw
Which
Deron
is
Bland.
exactly what we saw from him. That like once again, everything that like his skill set was very clearly transferable. And there's one other skill set that I think is like there's two players that I loved, especially from the defensive end. And they both actually three. I'll give three. All of them are in the NFC East, and we'll tackle them a little bit later. But I just look at this and say like I think this team overall, like and Caleb Downs, especially on the defense, like he's going to be like such a massive force in like what they're trying to do moving forward. And you were just talking about the DBs, and I think I still like that was my one thing where I was like they are still food to me. I'm looking at the DBs and like I, if there's a way to attack this team, like yes, they're going to get the pass rush if that pass rush is healthy. Like that's a big concern there. Regardless, it's going to be like all right, like Kobe Durant, like Deron Bland. I'm looking at them and like
It's
it's
better
who's
than what
down.
they've had.
Yes, but I think what makes me feel comfortable even saying yes to that is the fact that like Christian Parker could just run a Vic Fangio style defense and not put them in a situation where they're going to be isolated, not put them in situations to be targeted constantly. Which if you play it safe and then trust your hopefully healthy defensive line, you don't have to worry about these type of issues. So I
Well,
just yeah. Go
you know,
ahead.
I was saying also like I think the addition of Jalen Thompson is fantastic for them. Like I know Buda Baker gets a lot of the credit for what happened in the safety room with Arizona, but like Jalen Thompson was there with him also like doing extremely well in the back end. So I think having him and Caleb Downs together in there, and I know Caleb Downs will be like switching a little bit all over, but like if you have both of those guys as your back end safeties, I think that's a crazy good duo to have back there. So I do think like safety they'll be fine, and I think corners you're just kind of hoping that like Kobe Durant and Deron Blanc can just hold up, and I think they'll do well enough. And then they still also have Siobhan Ravel there, who they got last year, and he was coming off of injury, coming out of college from TCU. I was a big fan of his coming out. He was actually my favorite corner of that draft class, so I'm excited to see if he can maybe take a step forward too, and maybe earn the starting spot at some point.
I am interested by that because he was a player that like coming out of ECU was like he was phenomenal, but the injuries, especially DBs, it always seems to be a difficult like point to like just go on full on, and we saw that with some massive falls this past draft. So I once again I'm a lot more confident in this team, and crazy enough I'm getting this credit to Jerry Jones for going out and building a more competent defense. And
And that's all
I
you need. You just need a
yes
competent defense. With this offense, that's all you need. Because this offense is gonna like we saw them, bro. They can put up like 40 points a damn game if they want. They just need a defense that can get off the field.
yeah. So it's I hate to say it, but I think the Cowboys would be much better next year.
It's annoying.
Yeah. All right. We had 40 seconds left. So that was our first one we go under a little bit. Credit to that. So we're going to jump to the New York Giants now, who are were finished last season 5-12. Um, and all the chaos, all the fun, Cam Scadaboo and Jackson Dart slash Jameis Winston, like all the craziness. They decided to go with a new head coach, and that is John Harbaugh, who was with the Ravens for so long. And with that, they also drafted Arvo Reese, who was one of the players that I mentioned earlier. Is like phenomenal player. And this is yes, phenomenal player, and it's a lot of the big talk about him coming out of the draft. It's like they had him switch positions from just a linebacker to like a more like edge, like you're going to rush the passer. And it's funny that he was like you hear him talking in interviews, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just trying to get to the quarterback." And it's like he was doing it so well that like it really is crazy. But he's like, "Oh yeah, like I would do things," and coach tell me, "Oh, like they gave a name for it." And it's like I didn't know that had a name. I was just like just trying to get to the quarterback. So a defensive minded coach that can kind of shape that and teach him and teach him the proper like edge rushing skills. The fact that he's already just a pure pass rusher is a positive step in the right direction. With that being said, I
I
the
feel like
Giants
they're.
have enough pass rushers.
I was gonna say, are
They
they gonna
they
play him off ball?
that's the thing where it's like I understand that. To me, I think the way you utilize him best is having him rush the passer, but you put him in a roster where it's like there's so many weapons, and you still have the Kayvon Thibodeau, like you drafted Abdul Carter last year, like you're putting him in an ecosystem where there's a lot of bodies already, and this is where I would have preferred you draft a Sonny Styles, like who went to Washington because he can be that linebacker for you and the captain. We're hearing like things that he's already doing in Washington. So yes, Alvarez is going to be like phenomenal, but I think the way that I don't think they'll be able to properly utilize him to the best possible way because of just the bodies that they have from a depth perspective. But at the same time, depth on the edges is positive. So it's tough, but I think either way, like you just have to let it see how it plays out, and then you adjust as things continue to shake out. Princess Mal we know is another great pick. I think from a offensive line standpoint. I'm interested to see like what this offensive line will look like week one because there's still a lot of moving pieces and how exactly do you want to just like do you trust like I so many questions that I could ask and I like instead of sitting here and like saying like throwing out ideas I just want to see it like let's just see it week one because protecting Jackson Dart is going to be a an interesting I think the biggest part of all this and I I'm not fully sold on him being this guy that like is the cornerstone of the Giants. And I've seen so many people start like put him in Cam Ward conversations, and it is frustrating to me. Like, and it's just frustrating. And I know like it's Giants fans. There's so many of them that like it gets a little like just you hear so much noise. Jackson Dart hasn't done enough where I would even consider putting him in conversations with Cam Ward or even say like he is a franchise guy for us. Like I still like there's a reason James Winston is still there. And yes, I know
Yeah.
it's for a fun like, depth option. But I still look at this and say like he hasn't done enough where you can trust him to be that franchise cornerstone for you for years and years to come. But because it's the Giants, I like to just let them do this because it makes the Eagles look better as a result. But on the DB room, I like that they added Javon Holland, and then Colton Hood. I think is a very solid draft pick as well, who can come in and help that defensive end or defensive DB room as well. Not like I just the defense to me like yeah, there's so many question marks across the Giants side. Offensive line, defensive line, I think is good. They have so many bodies. You're going to get home eventually. Everything else I kind of look at in the defense and I'm like, how is it going to shake out? What is it going to look like? And I just don't know if they've done enough where I can confidently say a lot of those questions will be answered.
Yeah, I mean, I might be a little bit more confident than you with their defense. Like my biggest worry about their defense is the interior D line because obviously you trade away Dex,
Yeah.
and then they had a Roy Robinson Harris, but then he tore his Achilles, I think it was like earlier this summer. So like that kind of like gutted your interior right there. You still have like some good vets in there like DJ Reader and I think it's Shelby Harris, which like they can help shore that up. But like you said, off the edge, the fact that you have Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, and Kayvon Thibodeau, who's also like a really good like the fact that he's like their third guy, he's still a really really good productive like DN for them. And
Yeah.
I think Abdul Carter by the end of this season, we could be talking about him as like one of the best edge rushers in football. Like I do think he is that talented. I just dude the bend he has, like just the physicality, but then also just the flexibility. Like he is truly truly talented. The linebackers, like you got Tremaine Edmonds, and then I do think they'll use Arvell Reese next to him. And like there might be some growing pains at first, but like I think he'll be fine. Like I think he'll actually end up being like really good.
Yeah.
So
Like
like
I said, I think he's a guy that you can put anywhere. But I
right.
think when it's one of those things where it's like, and this is such a maybe not a nerdy way because or if you're watching this, you play video games as well. But it's like having a any type like Arbor for example, right? Like it's like you put him as at edge and his like rating goes up, but then you put him at linebacker and it goes down like maybe two, but it's like oh he's still good there. Like he can adjust to that, and that's how I look at this type of situation where it's like he will be good there. You can put him anywhere. On this field and the size and physicality that he plays at, size, physicality, and speed that he plays at, you're going to get results. I just think in order to maximize that, I think edge is the best option. But you have a Brian Burns, you have a Kayvon Thibodeau, you have all these options. Abdul Carter, who I confidently can say with you that I think he could be one of the best like edge rushers in the league. Like they're not putting him into a situation where that's going to be his role. And I think as a result, I look at that and say like, yes, this defensive line is going to have to get home because the corners are where I look at and say like, yes, I think Colton is a good addition. I Wrestling, I'm looking at and say Paulson Adebo another year. Like I don't know. I don't have a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I mean the DB room, it's like it's not bad, but it's not like great. Like it's just like it's a lot of like feels like wide receiver corner twos. Like that's kind of like how
Yes.
I would put it. It's just like I don't know if like a guy.
They're like the Packers when it comes to like
Yeah.
receivers.
But then like, and I like Newman, but like Holland, I just need him to be healthy. Like he's already dealing with like injury stuff, and it's just like
Yes.
I need him to have like a bounce back season if you're the Giants. Let me talk real quick. Like the coaches, I'm not bought in to this whole regime coaching change they did. Like Harbaugh flamed out of Baltimore, which I mean, look, it happens. He was there a really long time. He had a lot of success, right? But the way he flamed out and the way the NFL has gone since like you're a CEO coach, what do you actually bring in? Like he's like cursing out Jackson Dart for celebrating touchdowns like in practice and things like that. It's like okay, he's setting the culture and it's very old school, which I'm sure a lot of like older Long Island, New York Italians love, right? They're like, oh yeah, bringing the back to the old days. It's like a lot of people hate Mamdani, probably love Harbaugh. But anyways, but then they also bring in like Matt Nagy as our offensive coordinator, where I'm like, okay, like it hasn't. I don't know, like what have you seen from him in recent years where you think like that's going to be good, especially with a guy like Jack Start? Like maybe I don't know, we'll see. And then yeah, Jackson Dart, can he stay healthy? Can you protect him like you said? Because the interior of this whole line is very worrisome. I don't mind the tackles. The interior of the line, you're getting that push on Jackson Dart. He's not great in the pocket. Like he did not have a good pocket presence, and a lot of times he was quick to run, which he's a very good. He's one of the better running cornerbacks in the league already. I'll give you that. But like I think part of protecting him is like helping him protect himself because he
Yeah.
panics in the pocket at times, and then he gets himself in trouble, and that's how he gets injured. So I think it's a lot of just developing him because he can be like I'll give him this. He's a very accurate quarterback when he's on time and throwing with anticipation. It's just, can you get him to not panic in the pocket, basically?
Yes.
And then,
And this is where I think like you could put Francis Mauigoa like on the interiors, but like and it's just tough to throw an offensive lineman rookie out there and say
yeah,
like go perform immediately. We've seen that with Will Campbell. And I think Gray Zabel has made it way too easy for people to think, oh, it's you could just substitute a rookie in there and just it doesn't work that way. So
yeah.
there's
It's just the skill position players too, where I'm like,
yes,
okay, Malik
you
Neighbors,
okay,
I don't know if he's even good. When is
yes,
he going to play? Because he
that
had
was
to have
just yeah,
cleanup on his knee that he already had surgery on after tearing his ACL in that shitty field. And then after that, they're trying out. Like it feels like if you were just like going to raise your hand to like try out for the Giants at receiver, they were going to bring you in. You got Juju Smith-Schuster and Odell Beckham there trying to revive their careers. And then it was like Braxton Berrios is there. Like I like Calvin Austin as like a third kind of slot option, but besides that, I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know what this receiver room was awful. And
Darnell
then
Mooney, like they
yeah,
drafted Malachi Fields out of Notre Dame, who I really like as like a big physical receiver. But
and then you
there's
got Tyrone
yeah,
Tracy and Cam Scattaboo as your running back because Scattaboo will probably be
fresh
like
off a
the
a
who can't
crazy
even do backflips anymore because
yeah.
he's so like crazy. I don't know what's going on with Cam Scattaboo, but he just feels like such a short term. Like, oh yeah, he'll be a little exciting, but like I don't know how long this career is gonna last with the way he plays,
Yeah.
like on and off the field. It's just like dude, this dude might like run himself out of the league. But and
There's
yeah,
so many questions like about this team, and I think it's really hard to plot where they'll land because of that.
yeah, it'll be an interesting team to watch going forward.
It'll be a fun frisky team, but in the opposite direction of like the Dolphins or the Jets.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna enjoy watching the Giants.
Yes, it's like oh, like not good.
Yeah,
Anyway, speaking of teams that we hope will be a lot of fun, the Eagles. Now, they it was such a weird year, and yes, like living in Philly and working out of Philly, like at Legacy newspaper, you hear all the craziness and see all the crazy stuff from the media and things that everyone are saying. And you would think like the sky was like this team was like 5-12 and like the Jalen Hurts is throwing interceptions every play. Like
They won the fucking
not
division.
you would think like the sky was falling in Philadelphia the way the media was talking about this team. And they won the division for back-to-back years for the first time any team in the NFC East had done it in years. Like you had Saquon Barkley, who yes wasn't having the crazy productive years he was, but like he was still making plays. The defense was carrying you. Vic Fangio, like he had this team like competent. Um, and then you consider all the offensive coordinator discussion with Kevin Patullo, and it was just like so much noise for a team to still like not only make the playoffs but be like it's I don't want to say good because they went into the playoffs like with like our defense is going to save us. Ken Patullo is doing everything to go against our defense, but we're going to try to push through this regardless. And now you look at this team and it's like yes they had a disappointing first round exit, but this is a team that like is I think going to be a lot better than last year. And the fact that they were 11-6 last year, like I think says something. Because one, the biggest factor of all this, yes, Kevin Patullo is gone. More importantly, I think Vic Fangio is still here. That to me, I think says a lot more than like replacing any of the offensive coordinators. Like, yes, Kevin Patullo had to go. Don't get me wrong. Sean Mannion, I'm really excited to see what he does, and I think like there's still a lot of question marks there. I don't think he's as bad as Patullo, but it's really tough to kind of evaluate what that'll look like. But I think the fact that all we've heard about is the willingness from Jalen Hurts to adjust to an offense, the willingness to like swap and try to do different things and adjust to a new system, which he has done every year of his career, is a positive sign as always. And then you consider all the additions like Makai Livin. I one of the steals of the draft because of the value that they got for him when they did. Because he was the Blitnikoff winner. He was the best receiver in college football last year. And I would put him only behind Cardinal Tate as the best to come out of this draft class. And you add Eli Stowers, who like second round tight ends are the Eagles thing, and he is a very athletic tight end who, yes, has struggled throughout training camp a little bit, but long term, like I think he'll be the guy for you. Markel Bell could be a nice like post Lane Johnson player who's already came out and said like this is going to be his last year. Reek Woolen is a great addition to that DB room where it's like you were constantly questioning what that DB2 was going to look like. And you add Jonathan Grenard to your defensive line, who, yes, I know is banged up, but when you consider the depth that they have there, and even before, like, I know losing Jalen Phillips was Panthers paid him crazy money, so Eagles were never going to match that. But Howie Roseman, the Eagles, yeah, front office, everything, like, did a great job of still going out there with what they had in draft picks, naturally taking value out of that, and then still picking up these smaller or more moderate ways. I think John Grenard is a big addition. But when you consider like Nolan Smith is still there, Moro Jomo still that defensive line, like Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis just both got extensions. Like everything about this defense is still there. Yes, you lose your cousin and Reed Blankenship, but like you still have Cooper DeJean, still have Quinyon Mitchell. Like this team has only gotten better from last year, and the crazy thing that we're hearing all off season, and especially these past couple weeks, is Jalen Hurts the thing that holds this team back, and it is such a it is such a crazy thing to say this for a quarterback who's went to the Super Bowl 2 times, is a Super Bowl MVP, and every year has had to adjust to whatever craziness the Eagles are throwing at him, good or bad. And I think that to me he's been the sole point of like he's holding this team together and doing what like ever needs to be done to win games. And I've never seen a quarterback be criticized more for just winning games. Like he doesn't need to throw for 300 yards a game. He didn't have a single 300. Oh, he did have one against Minnesota. Yes, because that was the perfect pass rating game. Look at it now.
Shout out to Monte
326
Smith.
yards against yeah, perfect pass rating game by the way. But didn't have 300 yards the remainder of the season, and like it felt like they were holding it against this man of like, oh, he's not taking these deep shots and everything, and we saw how bad the play construction was, and running 4 verts to save your season, like that's literally a Madden like coach adjusting play, like and it really he was put into a terrible situation. And yes, I think I'm not saying he was perfect by any means. I think I would have loved to see him run a bit more. We're already talking about that's one of the things that we're seeing more of him from this offseason already is that they're like he's looking more athletic. He's looking like the Jalen Hurts from like 2 years ago where he was a run threat option. So yes, he wasn't perfect by any means, but for people to leave this man out of top 10 quarterback conversation is insane to me. He's better than Sam Darnold. He's better than the if man Justin Herbert. It's so many like ways to to demean this man and knock him down because he plays for the Eagles, and it is crazy to me that like that's the sole point of contention for people. Like, is that what holds this Eagles team back from like being a Super Bowl favorite? And it's like, no, Jalen Hurts is going to do his thing, no matter what the offense is, no matter who he's throwing to, he's going to figure it out. And I think the Eagles have surrounded him with great options on the offense and on the defense, where it's like it could like it. This is a team that only improved from last year. My only contention where I'd be like, if you want to poke a hole in it, Eagles fans, it's the offensive line because Jeff Stoutland isn't there anymore. You had issues with it last year, but they put bodies there and gotten healthier where I don't think it should be much of an issue as it was last
Yeah, let me start with the defense because I feel like I'm very confident. Like I think this defense could be just as good as they were during the 24 season when they won the Super Bowl. Like I think it could even potentially be like almost better than that one. Like Tariq Woolen is such a great like subtle signing. I don't know if it was subtle because when they signed it, it was one of those where like everyone's like, how the hell did Howie Roseman do this again? But like you bring him in as like your second corner opposite of Quinyon Mitchell, who's an All Pro like lockdown corner. Cooper DeJean obviously does what he does in the middle of the field. All the problem last year was we had to keep watching what's his name. I'm never gonna say it. Like out there opposite of Quinyon Mitchell, and Fangio
year.
had to
Keely
keep
Ringo,
not even him. I don't want to say his name. My dude out of USC. So they because of him, Fangio had to keep moving his secondary to like they had a cover for the second corner. Whereas like they had to like move like zone coverage on one side and then like all right, Quinyon, you lock down your guy. We're all gonna just help out on the other side of the field. Now when you get Tariq Woolen in there, you can be more physical at the line. You can play more man coverage off or on because I think Tariq Woolen's good at both. But I think especially if you're doing like off man coverage with him on Quinyon Mitchell, then you got Cooper DeJean in the middle. Like this team they could lock some people up. I think this could be like the best starting corner room in the league. And then the safety spot, yeah, you can learn a little bit. Like Fangio seems very, very smitten with Makuba, and he's very happy with it. Seems like how he's progressing into year two. And if Fangio's like high on a safety, I'm high on a safety because that man,
yeah,
like that is an important position for him. And then in base, they've already said that they're going to use Cooper DeJean as a safety. They only played base defense last year like 20% of the time, so whatever. So you're gonna have Cooper DeJean in the middle, Marcus Epps, Makuba back there. I'm not worried about that. The linebackers, Jihad Campbell, Zach Bond, two guys who can do a lot of the same stuff. Jihad Campbell's just like a more souped up version of Zach Bond. It seems like they're gonna be great in run fits. They can both go off the edge if you need to. If you're doing an odd front or a blitz package, and they can carry receivers and tight ends down the field at times too in coverage if you need. And they're both very intelligent in that way too. So not worried about that. Other than the D line, Jalen Carter had a year where in the first minute of the NFL season, he was spitting on Dak Prescott and getting suspended. He was dealing with a shoulder injury. I think he'll be perfectly fine and resurge again as a top 5 D tackle in the league, and rightfully so, like being paid that way. Jordan Davis is taking a step forward each and every year. Jalix Hunt is progressing each and every year as an edge rusher. Same with Nolan Smith. I think they're going to be two good physical like edge rushers coming off. Then you add Grenard, who can add more of that for you as well once he comes back healthy. You got but I mean, I just
Moro Ojomo.
yeah, it was him. Oh, Ty Robinson, who like he's had a bad start to everything, but like I think like as like
Yeah,
a fourth or fifth guy, it's like okay, we can keep developing him. But like this defense to me could just be like another generational one for the Eagles, and I'm really looking forward to that. So let me move on to the offense. The offense is
I
definitely where
we are over our time here. It's my fault for taking so much of the first portion, but
all right. Let me just say,
just quick summary.
Johnny Munt is a huge addition to this team that should be talked about more. I complained all last year about Dallas Goedert and how he can be a red zone threat, but he cannot block for his fucking life. You bring in Johnny Munt from the Jaguars and from the Rams, and previously from that, familiar with this kind of system, he can come in and be that he can help you out with your bigger personnel, which they want to do. They want to run more 12. Johnny Munt can help with that. You have a tight end who can actually block for you, and that frees up Dallas Goedert to be more of like that Tucker Kraft kind of role for this offense as well. All right, if anything I had to talk about, it was Johnny Munt and Devontae Smith being a true wide receiver one.
I'm also excited for my skinny king Devontae Smith to get this role because I think when he previously had it, he was a rookie. And it was a tough situation to come in where it was like the Eagles weren't the well built up team that they were now. And they're in a much better ecosystem to do that. And you consider Dontavian Wicks, like Mekhi Lemon. I know he hasn't been healthy during training camp, but I think receiver is one of those things where it's like, not to say like it's full, you could just sub him in and it'll be good. He still has to learn the playbook and everything, but I think being in the Eagles, like, he's been around the Eagles the entire training camp. Everything seems that like this is a team that is going to be just as dominant, if not better, than last year. And that says a lot considering like you would think the sky was falling with this team.
Yeah.
All right, final team of the episode, Washington Commanders. The high of the season before, where they were at NFC, competing in the NFC Championship.
Well, I don't know
I
if they
think we
competed in that game. They were there.
They were there in the NFC Championship. I think we both were like, that was fun. You like Jaden Daniels is the guy for you moving forward. But there was clearly a lot of changes that needed to be made heading into last season. The team was very old, especially on defensive end, and on defense. And it was like you can't just run it back. Washington instantly said, we're going to run it back. And we saw the result of this team just not being as good as, well, not honestly not being as good as they could have been, because this was the, like, I think what you were going to get running back this team. And yes, I know a lot of that is also amplified by Jalen Daniels being hurt, which, real quick, all of the LSU stuff that's came out today of as is recording, where he's sending cease and desist over the jersey number thing, to me, it seems very dumb. I'll be honest.
I'm
Like,
kind of on his side with it. Why are you
so
retiring the other Heisman winners' numbers immediately, but not his, and giving it to a damn freshman?
are you gonna say that like
Are you going to
Jaden
give Joe
Daniels had the
Burrow's
same?
number?
Are you gonna say Jaden Daniels had the same impact that Joe Burrow did in LSU? And like, you think of like 2019
He
LSU and the
won.
team, they won a national championship. Like,
He won the
that
Heisman and he
team was
broke
special.
records. He won the Heisman and he broke records for your team. In college, especially in the SEC, that should be enough. That
I
should be
I
enough. And the fact that
I
they
don't
look,
think it was.
I know the kid is a 5-star prospect who wants to take his number, and this shouldn't count for our time with the Commanders, by the way. I know, like, he's it's a freshman 5-star coming in that wants the number, and it was like a part of like basically like almost like an NIL kind of contract where he gets a number. It's bullshit, dude. It's bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels was so good there for them, and he did so much for them. Come on, man. What are we talking about?
I will agree with you in the sense that like the NIL packages and tying it to it and be like, oh, we'll promise you this, like, and Lane Kiffin came out and say like it was, and it makes sense because it was a process that like would have happened before he was there
Yeah,
at
because Lane
LSU.
Kiffin's such a guy who's so focused on contracts and following the rules and staying within the grain and being the guy who drives. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, shut the hell up, Lane Kiffin. Oh, now you're gonna honor a contract? Shut the hell up.
I Either way, I think to me it was such a petty thing to do. And my perspective from this is that like you have to think about like this recruit that's coming in. That's like, all right, like I'm excited to play for this culture, and then to have like a Heisman winning quarterback from the college come out and say like, essentially, like, to me it comes off like you weren't good enough to like take this on. And I think like my perspective on like jersey numbers, I always will appreciate Michael Irvin's approach to this, where it's like 80, and he talked about this in an interview where it's like, I don't want to ever retire 88 because it's like, and he always, like, I saw the video where he's like, it's like, if they retire the jersey and like I pass away, he's like, they're just gonna go, oh, like, there goes Michael Irvin back to the game. And he's like, the fact that like, every week, like if CeeDee Lamb catches the ball, they say it looks like Mike Irvin, and if he drops the ball, it's like Mike Irvin would have caught that ball. And I think that, to me, that is the approach that I will always find is the best to go about these type of things, because it's like it's a situation where it's like it when you pass it to them, it's an honor. And I think a part of that is that the person that is being passed to should take this as as a rite of passage. But at the same time, I'm not an NFL player. I'm not a college player, so I can't really speak on like if I set records at a college and I'm not getting the respect I feel I deserve.
I mean, like I said,
Um,
and this is how I end
yeah.
it. Like, I think my main thing with it is you de facto retired Joe Burrow and other players' numbers after they left. You won't let anybody take those numbers. But then all of a sudden, when Jaden Daniels, like, you're okay giving his number away, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, it's the unfair and like the picking and choosing of it, where I'm like I can understand where Jaden Daniels is like, well, why is my number the one that gets to go away? Uh,
All right, so obviously little side tangent there. We both have our feelings. I won't count that against our time, just because that was a little side note and different. But back to the Commanders, who were 5-12 last year. They did bring in a new defensive coordinator in Durante Jones, who was a former DB coach from Minnesota. But as I mentioned, like Sonny Styles going to Washington was another one that hurt my soul because I was like, he's just going to be so good there, especially in the Dan Quinn defense where like Sonny Styles, like if you don't know, was like a high level like safety prospect, and then they moved him to linebacker, and somehow he got better. So he's this
Yeah.
massive like 6'4" like figure in the middle of this like middle of the defense who is fast as hell, can cover sideline to sideline, great coverage skills as a former safety, and can rush the passer like anyone's business. So it's he to me was like him alongside Caleb Downs to me were prospects that like I was surprised weren't getting like talks in the top five. And obviously you could say like you knew like Mendoza was going to go one, and after that it was kind of like Cardinal Tate going as early as he did was a surprise. Even then, I still think Sonny Styles should have gotten more consideration of going higher because of the skill set that he can bring and the versatility where maybe if you are like struggling for safety for a couple of games, you can move him back there and have that versatility. So I just look at this and say like I think he was a phenomenal pick for Washington. But then I look at the rest of the team and I look at the rest of what they're trying to do, and it's like it feels like a lot of like yes, they've made changes to try to improve. I look at this team and say like I don't think it's enough to like be significantly better than they were last year. It's like you bring in Javon Kinlaw, who like yes has shown flashes, but nothing good where you're like, oh, it's worth it. I do like the Kavion Chase on like addition because we saw what he was able to do for New England, and you're like, all right, like he's reshowed why he could be a great edge rusher. Let's see it at in Washington. So I think that's a great addition. But on the other side of him, it's like I don't think it'll really like, you can't just have one pass rusher in today's NFL. You need to have bodies on bodies that can attack you in different ways. And I don't think they really have that. And then you look at their DB room and it's like I would say Mike Sandstrom solid, but Trey
When he
Amos, like
Trey Mike Saintsville is good when he's not playing outside corner,
yeah.
which they kept trying to make happen. And luckily, he looks like he'll be back. Well, see, this is where okay, I don't mean to interrupt you here, but like this is where the DB room is concerning to me. The D line to me is like you have competent vets there and Deron Payne and all these guys, right? Like Odafe Owe, like I think they'll be fine on the D line. Like it'll be good enough, you know what I'm saying? Like functional. The
Yeah.
linebackers I'm really excited about their linebacker room, starting with Sunday Styles, Frankie Louvu, who can go back to more of like what he's good at as a
Yes.
linebacker in this system. And
Temple
then Leo
legend Jordan McGee right
Jordan
behind him.
McGee as the fourth guy with Leo Chanel right there too. Like I like that linebacker room. The DBs, dude, I don't know what like Trey Amos, if he can stay healthy, our boy Rasul Douglas is there. But like, yeah, Sanger Still and Meek Robertson are two like two corners I'm a fan of when they're used properly. But like right now, it looks like it'll be Sanger Still or Robertson starting on the outside, and that concerns me because if they're going to go up against guys like that are more physical or just I don't know taller than 5'8", like that could be kind of an issue for this team. Not to disrespect
Yeah.
short kings, I'm sorry.
No, yeah, I did take a little bit of offense to that, but I was like, I'm not trying to run, routes out there on the field, so it makes me feel good. But then you look like offensive end as well. Yes. Offensive line, what did you do to improve the protection for Jaden Daniels? And I
And they
look at that and
lost
say
Laramie
like,
Tunsil.
yes. And which is another part of this where it's like it's tough. It's tough to sit here and I can't confidently say with like good intentions that this team will be better than last year. And it's a lot of like Jaden Daniels has to go out there and play heroic ball. I do like Stephon Diggs. I think is a good addition to receiving room, but it's it's tough to like look at that receiving core, and I think they kind of fall into the trap of, like a lot of wide receiver twos, where it's like Terry McLaurin, yes, can still be that guy for you, but he's older, and you've seen that he hasn't been the Terry McLaurin that like scary Terry level. Luke McCaffrey is a fun, frisky like slot guy for you, but like I will say I like Antonio Williams that they drafted from Clemson, who can do a bit of everything for them. Traylon Burks had a really solid, fun
Hey,
catch for you.
I'm in on the Traylon Burks reclamation project. He has all the tools, man.
I'll
He
let you
has
do
all the
that.
tools.
I'll let you do that.
Yeah.
I do like adding Rashad White, but
Hmm.
it just this team just feels very mediocre. Like there's a lot of, and I don't say mediocre, that sounds a little bit too harsh. A lot of average additions. A lot of like this team is kind of in the middle where it's like I could see them winning, like maybe staying a game off of like a really good team, but then losing to a really bad team the next week. And I think that's where I look at this team. I'm like, it's hard to really place them in the grand scheme of the NFC and look to say that this team would be competent because of just how average they truly are.
Yeah, it's a lot of, especially on offense. Like they bring over David Blau, who's going to run that kind of like Ben Johnson kind of offense, which is something like it's new for them, right? Like it's pretty new for them. Jaden Daniels is like where it all starts and ends for them though, because like they're relying on him to be like that rookie Jaden Daniels, like who was just going out there playing superhero like the entire time. And I don't know if you can't protect him, then like what are we doing here? Like even with Larry Matonso, I wasn't that confident in his whole line like that. But without him now, especially for an offensive scheme that really like you think about Ben Johnson, right? He had Penei Sewell, and then he has Darnell Wright now, right? It's like you need those tackles in this kind of offense to be able to do what they want to do. And then you lose Tunsil, then now you've got they're projected to put I think Andrew Wiley out there starting left tackle. I would actually maybe go with Brandon Coleman as like the younger guy to like try him out, but like
Yeah.
you got that. I liked Chris Paul, Cosby, Connolly. Like it's not like it's a terrible O line. It's just, especially now that Tunsil's gone, I don't trust them to protect Jaden Daniels enough, especially they wanted to be moving the pocket for him and everything like that. I just that's where I'm worried about. Chigo Kwanko comes over, who's like I liked him. Like he's shown flashes at times, but I just don't know if he's a good fit for what this offense wants to do, especially like as like a blocker. I don't think he can really function for you there. I do think the biggest benefit out of everyone in this offense could end up being Bill Krosky Merritt. Like I think he could actually have a really good season with this system. But like I said, it all starts and ends with Jaden Daniels, him staying healthy, him getting back to being accurate again. His accuracy kind of dipped last year in the games he did play. He was 2-5 in the games he started. It's just like I don't know, man.
All right. I'll just add final thoughts and then we'll do the final predictions.
Okay,
All right. Yeah, I just look at this team and I think yes, there's a lot of like fun parts that I'm excited for. At the same time, like you said, it's a lot of like Jaden Daniels, we need you to go out there and play hero ball first. We need you to go out there and try to win games. And I think putting him behind a really average offensive line, which naturally for a player that has had injury issues throughout his early career, is a tough situation to put him in. So
well,
it
can
like
I
you
just
said, it
say?
all starts and ends with him.
Can I just say real quick with like the
Yeah.
whole Jaden Daniels conversation has been it's been disingenuous and annoying at times because it's been like everyone thinks he's this like top, like a lot of people putting him in like top 5 conversations based off of basically just his rookie year, which I can understand. Like they were really good. They got the NFC Championship game. It was an awesome year for him. But like last year was last year, and there was injuries and a lot of stuff going on. That's not all on him. Like most of it wasn't on him. But like I need to see it again. Like and I need
Yeah.
to see him have that success again. I'm not going to go everything off of one rookie year, right? Where it was like there was like a flash in the pan. Like I need to see him be more accurate again. I need to see him stay on the field, and I just need to see more consistency out of him before I'm putting him in top 5 conversations up there with Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson, like everyone keeps trying to do. Let me see it be a consistent force in the league. Okay, it's just I love Jaden Daniels. He's super talented. I'm a fan of his game. I need to see it more consistently.
Yeah, I agree. And it's I think a lot of people will say like last year was the flash in the pan. And I think I'm on the same boat of you where it's like I'm not saying it's a flash in the pan because it was a phenomenal rookie year and he set records and he did everything he should have. But it was all right, like that's a cool first step. We need to see it again. We need to see you progress. We need to see you improve. And I think this season is going to have to be a lot of that. But he's behind a team that isn't necessarily going to allow him to do that. So I think that's where it's tough. And I think this is where we see Dan Quinn get booted in the process. I don't know if he survives another season.
We'll see. We'll see.
All right, final predictions for the NFC. I'll let you go.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go. All right, I'm going Eagles, Cowboys, Commanders, Giants, which I feel like is like,
Ooh. Okay,
yeah, I was
go
gonna say
ahead.
it's the top one that I feel like confuses people the most. No,
I have Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, Commanders. I
wow.
don't I don't I think the Commanders like when I say average like I think like bottom of the like NFC East because of that. I think the Giants will like just solely based off how good their defensive line is and like how they'll just be able to dominate games and not not even have to worry about their DBs getting fried much. I think that's where it sets the edge for me, and I'm like I put them over the Commanders, and I like that offensive line. I genuinely kind of fear for Jaden Daniels because it's like how well they're going to be able to actually protect him. And someone who's already had as many injuries as he's had, it does become a genuine question. Now the top two as well, I do genuinely have like I in no good mind would I ever put the Cowboys like above the Eagles unless it was like I'm talking
Well,
like last year of Andy Reid Eagles where I'm like, oh, this is really bad. But at the same time though, I do think this Cowboys team like will like I think it ends up being a situation where we've seen the not before like the last couple of years where it was like the Eagles and Cowboys will always split games. Like Eagles will win their home one, Cowboys win their home one, and it's a really competitive type of like a race to the NFC East title. I think it's between those two. The Giants and Commanders are like fighting to stay afloat. But I do think the Cowboys, like just solely based on how explosive their offense is, how much they've improved on defense, like is a threat to the Eagles. But I think the Eagles are a much more complete team that I think you can confidently say like right now, like they will be good just because of like Vic Fangio's still there. Like this defense is all the same, and you've only added pieces that will allow everyone to be their best self. While the Cowboys, you do still have the question of like, what does Christian Parker look like as a defensive coordinator? Yes, like he's very highly touted, he's very young, but you're putting him into a system where he has to kind of set things for himself. So that's where I would say like that's the one thing that holds the Cowboys back is probably those growing pains early in the season where you still have to figure out like that, and you may still have to deal with injuries. So I did genuinely think like there is a chance like I could put the Cowboys above the Eagles, but then I thought about like I said the last point about specifically the defense aspect of this.
yeah, I think my thing with the Cowboys and Eagles is I think they both have the same ceiling where like I think they could both be in the NFC Championship game, but I think the Eagles' floor is just a little bit higher thanks to their defense and just what we've seen from like I know their offense might be worse than the Cowboys, but I just think I'm a believer in the changes that they've made this offseason, and I just think their floor is a little bit higher as a team overall. I will
Yes,
say
the
though,
Eagles don't
a
need to
breaking
be
point for me
don't
with
need
the
to be
Cowboys,
flashy.
a breaking point for me with the Cowboys though was almost Brendan Aubrey. Like legitimately, we didn't talk about him, but like he is a legitimate weapon in the NFL.
I
But
can't disagree with you. Like once again like one of those things where it's like as an opposing rival hurts your soul to see someone so good end up with someone who doesn't deserve him. Um, I sound like a jealous ex saying that, but it's one of those situations where Brandon Aubrey is the best kicker in the NFL, and it's like it's insane what he's able to do.
especially when you're
Hey, but
starting drives at the 35-yard line, you're like, all right, cool, let's get
yeah,
one first down and we'll get 3 points.
Cam Little, just based off a leg perspective, his rookie year, give him a bit time to get consistent. We'll start having discussions, but right now it's like no one's Brandon Aubrey is he's the guy for in the NFL when it comes to kickers. So
100%.
I genuinely could see how you could be like, hey, he pushes me over the edge a little bit for the one seed NFCs, but I'm sticking with my Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, and the Commanders.
All right, well, hey, that's the first time we've been different.
Hey, oh yeah, we were different for a little bit for the AFC East, and then I came around to my senses. So I'll agree with you on that.
All right. Well, I think that's it, right? Do we have anything else?
No, well actually, okay. One final thing. This isn't NFL, so I'll save it for last. But Russell Westbrook retiring, um, genuinely like I it's one of those moments where it's like as an OKC fan who like I became an OKC fan because of Russ. I grew up in Philly around the trusted process era, and it was even before Embiid was here. So I was like, I'm not gonna sit here and watch like old Elton Brand like out here like running up trying to run up and down the court. It was painful to watch. Jason Richardson was a bucket back then. I will say that. But I saw Russ and KD as a kid, and I fell in love. And Russ was such a big part of my childhood and such a big part of like my NBA watching experience that it was like genuinely kind of sad to see him like retire. Which and it's kind of crazy. You asked me this last year after OKC won. You're like, oh, did you cry? And I was like, no, I was just kind of sat in silence. And then like I like to feel myself like I felt more emotion with Russ retiring than I did like OKC winning the finals. And I will stand on the fact that I think he's a top five guard of all time. Obviously, ring culture is crazy nowadays, but I think he's genuinely up there as one of the best point guards of all time. Just from a skill set and everything you're saying athletically, but also like I feel like in his prime, one of the most unstoppable mid range jumpers of all time. So it just I'm gonna miss Russ in the league and his competitive fire. And I always think about like the the Jeff, of course Jeff T's got stories on stories, but he always talked about how like he told the one story
That's
about
the
how
problem.
when he was yeah, that's the problem. What where he was like, oh, like trying too hard. He's like, you're not trying enough. Like, and I think about like how intense like he was, and it's funny because Kevin Durant came out like, right before we were recording, and like
Long
said a
post.
statement, and like honestly, I was like, it made like all the hate I've had for Katie and the Katie files and everything. I mean, like this guy's a bad teammate. All that stuff like went away for like 5 minutes where I was like, it was really cool to hear him come out and talk about how he always thought like Russ wasn't this like crazy intense like aggressive guy, but he was actually a more like calculated, calm, and like just procedural guy who like went about things in a unique way that was intelligent. So all of it, I think, like it says a lot that like all the NBA communities kind of came out and be like, Russ was that guy, and so it's really cool to see him like kind of go out and not go out on a bad note either. Like, yeah, he was in
Mm.
Sacramento, but I think his play, like, you weren't seeing him like you weren't seeing like Vince Carter level play where they're putting him out there for a final play to be like, all right, like get your final last shot up there. Like it was in no respect to Vince Carter, I loved him, but that last like Hawk year was bad. But I think about like if Russ went out the way that we saw him play his entire career, which was full intensity, full effort. So it was really cool.
Completely agree. And he was legitimately like a key contributor to playoff teams towards the end of his career. Like think about what he did for the Clippers when everyone was out, and what he did for the even the Nuggets like that year he
Yeah,
was with them. Like he was a legit piece for them at times. So I agree with you said one of the greatest point guards of all time. The triple doubles and all that. Like it was some of the most fun you could have watching basketball was like prime Russell Westbrook.
yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's it for us. So thank you everybody again for watching our NFL preview shows. We're halfway through already, which seems crazy, but two more shows to go, and then obviously we'll have one more big final preview and picks for awards and whatnot before the season starts. But who do we have next? The West or the South?
Yep. South, South, South. We will
South. Perfect.
tackle
Oh
NFC
God,
and AFC South.
the NFC South is going to be very fun to talk about. I can't wait for that. So looking forward to that for sure, but we'll be back to talk about that next week. So thank you everybody for listening. I've been Ty. That's Jay. We'll see you next time.